Hello, everyone. So glad you could join us today on ReachIvy's webinar on getting your essay right. I am Shyam Gursahani, a senior counselor at ReachIvy, and I will be leading this session. ReachIvy is a premium education and careers advisory focused on study abroad and careers guidance. Some of our services include college selection, essay editing and applications, interview prep, and resume review. Our session today will cover a broad overview of specifics you need to get in place to succeed with your essays. At the end of the session, we will open the floor for questions. So if you have any doubts, make a note of them, and we will try and address them at the end of the session. So, without further ado, let's go through the next few slides and decode the secrets to getting your essays right. Getting your essays right. Getting your essays right is more than simply answering the question. It's about differentiating yourself from the rest of the world, applying for your seat at the table. Even people from marketing backgrounds often find it hard to market themselves in an application. For example, me. I am an MBA alum from the Judge Business School, University of Cambridge. I am also the founder and strategy head at Albatross Digital, a marketing firm. I love to travel, and I am a tech enthusiast. My previous experience includes stints with Geometry Global and an e-commerce startup that I started after the MBA called GroupDraw. There are several aspects that go into getting your essays right. Differentiating, like we've already mentioned before, from the rest of the world is extremely important. And you always must remember that you have to market yourself. So, the natural question then is, how do we start? The first thing that we often recommend our students to do is to know your profile. An essay is a part of the overall application, and it's very important to remember that. The first thing we recommend doing is spending a few days simply listing down every story of any significance in your life. Right from school all the way to your last job, just pen them all. Make sure to include the challenges you faced and the actions that you took. It's the actions that make you the hero that you are. After the actions are mentioned, always clearly mention the results, because actions without results don't mean a thing. Most people, after hearing the last 2 points, start penning down all the achievements. Oh, I won here, I won there, I did this. But it's important to highlight your failures as well. Any event and every event that has helped shape your life is an event that must be penned down, is an event that can be highlighted in the essays to come. Once you've done that, you need to segregate them into 3 distinct categories. The first category is the must-haves. These stories, you will decide, need to most certainly be a part of your application. The second category is the good-to-have. These stories can be used if additional stories are needed. Where and how additional stories are needed is something that we'll cover in the rest of in a different part of this presentation. And finally, we have the have-nots. Now, once you've penned down everything from the start of your life to right now, you will come across a lot of stories that actually don't pass a few tests that we've defined in the later part of the presentation, and you must let them go and make sure you don't include them at all. Once you've got your stories in place, it's very important to distribute the stories. Now, what do we mean by that? Every school has a different application process. Now, when I say different, what I mean is the questions that they ask you in the application are different. The number of essays that are asked in an application can be different from school to school. Vendors that certain applications ask for can be different. For example, certain applications will specifically ask you for a peer recommendation. whereas certain applications will specifically ask you for a supervisor. Um, the deadlines for every application are different, and more so, even the number of rounds for every kind of school are different. However, all these different formats and the different ways in which schools have structured their application work towards achieving just one single primary goal. Every school, whether through a single essay like Harvard or through multiple essays like INSEAD, wants to understand what sets you apart. So when I say distribute the stories, you need to select different stories from your life and spread it across the different parts of your profile. So for example, if Harvard gives you only one essay to write, make sure you fill it with a few stories. Make sure you use the recommenders section to say the other stories, and so on and so forth. By doing this, you'll have all your must-have and hero stories out there in the application for the school to see. Finally, after we've done all that, we come to the essays themselves. What do we use the essays for? We now have the stories that go into each essay. Remember, these are our best stories. I repeat this multiple times. Use your best stories, personal and professional. And these are the stories that are going to help set you apart. The first point that we like to cover, and this is, I think, the most essential, the essential thing that you need to do when you start writing your essays, is to pick a theme. Pick a theme for your essay or profile. Are you a winner? Are you a fighter? Creating a theme often sets a tone for the content to follow, hooking the reader into your story right from the start. So there's so many times we've written about students who have, scaled the Everest. So, and they love trekking. So we build a theme around that. We had a student once who's traveled to 56 countries. We've built a theme around that. It's always about, pulling something out of his personal or professional life, or in this case, your personal or professional life, and creating an overall theme that goes with all the stories that you use in the essay. The second point, and this is a little harsh, guys, is the so what test. Now, this is a very harsh test, like I said, on your achievements. It's on your own achievements. But it's very important to put everything you write through the so what test. Now, what I mean by that, let me state this with an example. A student once wrote, I was stuck in the Mumbai rains, so I walked 12 kilometers to get home. Now, as normal human beings, 12 kilometers is a lot, right? Nobody generally does it. It's commendable. However, but it was the Mumbai rains. So was he the only one who did that? The entire city did that. And some maybe a lot more than 12 kilometers to get home that day. So this basically fails the so what test. What this example does is, it brings out a very clear point. Your so what test has to be a clear filter that helps differentiate your story, your achievement, your actions, and the results from those actions from the rest of the world. So whatever it is that you have done needs to stand out. And the so what test, although so harsh, really helps you do that. This is a point that often most students get really, really wrong. Read the question. What do we mean by that? We often create template essays and try to force fit those in every application that we work on. Schools know that and can easily differentiate a generic essay from an essay created for them. The basic essay that every student writes is my short-term, long-term goals. What are my gaps? What are my, why do I want to join a certain college? And then what we end up doing is we end up using that same format for every school. So if Stanford asks you why Stanford, they simply want to know why you want to go to that school. They don't want to know what are the gaps in your profile or any other things, right? Of course, now to answer why Stanford, you may have to answer certain other things about your goals and then go on to why Stanford. But you don't have to go into other details of your main template essay. So, like I said, read the question very clearly. Make sure you answer the question very clearly. If the question is divided into two parts, divide the word count into two parts so that each part is given equal weightage because they've asked the question that way. Goals. We often get asked, and we've often got students who come to us and actually say that, hey, can you please help define our goals? Uh, yes, we love to help you define your goals, but the overarching thought for defining your goals is that you need to select ambitious but realistic goals. Unless restrictive, always state the market opportunity and your interest in those goals. Now, okay, what I mean by this, basically, if I have a certain job where I am a senior manager in a certain company without an MBA, and I'm going to get an MBA from a particular school, I need to be ambitious about what I'm doing after I get that MBA. It cannot be a designation just one level up or two levels up. It needs to be something that's actually ambitious and something that I can only get if I go to that school. That is for your short term goals. For your long term goals, again, schools want winners, schools want people who can change the world. So your long term goals also need to be that ambitious. However, you cannot have a short term goal that basically says, hey, I want to, join a company doing fintech, and then have a long term goal that says, I want to make electric cars. That doesn't fly. So, this is what I mean by realistic goals. Ambitious, but realistic. Please make sure when you're writing your goals essay, you balance them out. Schools want to know that you are moving towards something that is tangible, but at the same time, worthy of their schools. Please remember that. The reason Harvard, Stanford, NCR are so proud of their alumni, or Wharton is so proud of its alumni, is because they have people who've got out and they got people inside who are worthy of their schools. So please remember that and make sure you position yourself that way. The other point I covered here was market opportunity and interest. Um, Oftentimes, we want to go into a field that has a very niche market opportunity, or it's got a market opportunity that no one else has currently noticed, or it's a blue sea that you're discovering or want to explore after the MBA. Please make sure you highlight that, because you highlighting that shows how well prepared you are to face the world after the MBA. The next point we'd like to cover today are the optional essays. Now, basically, there are generally two types of optional questions. There could be more, but we're covering just two right now. The first type asks for any extenuating circumstances. Now, unless there is something extenuating in your profile, like a big gap in your work, or a certain recommender not recommending you for the position at the school, or something that really needs to be highlighted, only then, only and only then, use this essay. Please, and please let this go. So even if you've worked for 6 years of your life and you've probably had a 3-month gap in your first year of working, that is not something you need to highlight. This essay is only looked and written for highlighting negative stuff in your profile that shouldn't come out in any other way. The second question, the second optional question that's often asked is, do you have anything additional you want to tell us that you haven't already covered? Now, a lot of students, you know, look at this essay and think about it as the first one. It's not. So please read the wording carefully. It goes back to my earlier point of read the essay, read the question very clearly. They're asking for additional information. Please answer this question. This is the school just giving you one more chance, 300 words more, 500 words more, depending on the word count, to tell them why you deserve to be in that school. Never let go of this essay. Highlight a star story. Highlight your journey of life where you've had certain learnings. Highlight something personal if you have to. But make sure that you use that essay to talk and add more value to your applications. You'll often find that even in the recommenders section, there's often a question that says, is there anything additional you want to say about the candidate? Again, must capitalize on that opportunity. You must ask your recommenders to fill in that question with another star story or something else that covers something great about you. Never let this chance go. The last point about essays are the creative essays. Creative essays are a great way to say things with a creative flair. And I love these ones. Like coming from marketing background, I really, really recommend creative essays, and the schools love them too. This creative flair makes your story, your introduction a lot easier to understand, and it also allows you to do creative things to make your profile stand out. If given a choice, pick the creative essay over a written one. Now, another thing which is very important about creative essay is you must thematize these essays. Like I said, if you love travel and you can create an essay on the go in a train, fantastic. If you love cricket, do it on the cricket field. If you love tennis, start your essay, start your video on the tennis court. So again, be creative about these essays, highlight different aspects about your profile, and make sure that the admissions committee knows that you're not just about work, you're not just about a single dimension, you're about multiple things. uh, Summarizing all the 6 points that we've spoken about the essays, uh, what we often recommend, and this goes back to distribution more so than anything else, what we often recommend is that students should make sure that uh, they balance the stories that are written in the recommendations versus the ones written in the essay. What I mean by that. So if your recommenders are only from your work background, maybe you can leave all the work stories for the recommendations and fill your essays with personal stories. Or if you have something else that you like to cover in your personal in your essays that is not a part of your work, but it's a very big part of your personal life, make sure you do it. Balance the entire application out. Think of it as real estate, right? You want to fill the real estate in such a way that your profile really, really stands out. Um, Moving on, I'd like to close this entire presentation uh, with highlighting three things, right? Uh, the school wants to get to know you, right? That's why they have these essays. They want to know you're a good fit. They want to know you'll come and contribute. They want to know that when you get out of those schools, you will be enriched by what you've experienced there. So please make sure you tell them who you are. Please make sure you tell them what makes you unique. And please make sure you tell them what drives you. Use it to your advantage, and I promise you that you will get your essays right. So that was my presentation. I'm going to switch back to video now, and I'm going to open the floor for any questions that you guys may have. Hey guys, questions that you may want to ask. Okay, so till the questions come in. Uh, oh, we have a question. When should I start working on my essays? uh, as early as possible, really. There is no set limit or there is no set time on whether you should start a month before or whether you should start, a week before. It basically depends on how soon you can cover everything. Um, like I said, get your stories in place, get your recommenders in place, get the stories for the recommenders in place. All of this takes time. So the earlier you can start, the better. Also, a lot of people have this habit of submitting the application a day before the deadline or 2 days before the deadline. We generally don't recommend that. There's no negative impact on this, it's just always good to be better prepared. And the schools also know that, okay, fine, his application was submitted well in advance. So yeah, I would say about 2.5 months before at the least, if you're applying to just one school. All right. Since there are no other questions, um, I'd like to close this webinar now. Um, Thank you so much for being a part of this. If you do have any questions after this session, or if you think that if you come up with anything after this session, please feel free to write to us on help@reachiv.com, and we'll be really happy to get back to you.